where the 9 Merlin engines will cease firing, setting up stage separation at T plus 2 minutes 34 seconds, followed quickly by the second stage engine ignition, or SES1, when that Merlin vacuum engine ignites. Payload fairings will jettison at T plus 3 minutes 10 seconds. They'll splash down in the Atlantic, again, to be recovered by the vessel Bob. Then at T plus 6 minutes 14 seconds, the first stage entry burn begins. That'll last 18 seconds, followed up by the first stage landing burn, getting ready to touch down on the drone ship. Begins at T plus 8 minutes 6 seconds. Touchdown expected at T plus 8 minutes 28 seconds. Then at T plus 8 minutes 44 seconds, the second stage engine will cut off, otherwise known as SECO 1. Falcon 9 upper stage will remain in a coast phase until T plus 54 minutes 9 seconds, when that Merlin vacuum engine will reignite for a brief 2-second burn, setting up for payload deployment when the 23 Starlink satellites will be released at T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 27 seconds. As currently stand, it's T minus 11 minutes, 15 seconds to liftoff. Now T minus 9 minutes, 37 seconds and counting. About 2.5 minutes away from the engine chill down sequence that's coming up T minus 7 minutes. Before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about the payload on board, the 23 Starlink satellites. You see a file photo of what those look like when they're stacked in launch configuration. This photo was taken before another Starlink launch. Tonight, poised to be the 41st launch of these V2 minis to date. This will also be the 61st Starlink launch of 2023. Each of these satellites weighs about 1,760 pounds or 800 kilograms. After the solar panels unfurl, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. They use argon hull thrusters for in-orbit maneuvers, and they were built in Redmond, Washington, which is near Seattle. Of course, to date, SpaceX still hasn't published a rendering or a photo of what the V2 minis look like in their operating configuration, but we do have this photo taken by the Australian company AGO Robotics using one of its satellites, and claim this was the first direct observation of a Starlink V2 mini on orbit. A little bit grainy, but here you can see the 2 solar panels extending from the main body of the satellite. T minus 8 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. Just a little over 30 seconds now from the engine chill down sequence. Starlink V2 minis were developed as a holdover before the version 2 full-size satellites could be launched using SpaceX's Starship vehicle, currently in preparations for its third integrated flight test over in Starbase near Boca Chica Beach in South Texas. Here are some of the differences, though, between the version 1.5 satellites and the V2 minis currently flying. These have 4 times the capacity of their predecessors. They introduced E-band for backhaul. They featured upgraded phased array antennas. They are 2.6 times heavier than the version 1.5 satellites. And they also use argon hull thrusters, replacing the previously used krypton thrusters. Here's an image of what they look like when they're firing for reference. SpaceX currently has more than 2 million Starlink internet customers around the world, available in more than 60 countries across all 7 continents. This is a map of SpaceX's coverage currently. The light blue areas have coverage now, and the darker shades are a combination of waitlisted and coming soon countries. A T-minus 6 minutes, 3 seconds and counting. About a minute and a half away from the strong back retract sequence beginning. Just before then, though, we should be getting some mission audio from SpaceX. So just as a heads up, before we get to that point, if you do hear us pause, that is so that we are not talking over the mission audio loops. I want to be able to allow you to hear what we are hearing, and we're not conflicting with one another. As we get ready for that, excuse me, want to welcome a couple other folks to channel membership, MS, as well as a little tech joining us both at the pad leader level. Really appreciate the support from you both. Welcome to channel membership. Also want to thank DH for a $7 YouTube super chat. Thank you so much, DH. Asks to give a shout out to Lee H, who is watching from Ontario, Canada. Go SpaceX. Happy to oblige. Hello, Lee H. Hope things are going well up north in our northern neighbors, Canada. Hello to you in Ontario. And once again, thanks to channel member Callistia Lee for another $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Callistia, and stand by that comment. Just remember to hit the like/thumbs up button, and that would be a big help. We are now in the final 5 minutes, and we heard that call from SpaceX that the strong back retract sequence is beginning. So to the 15,000 plus of you who are with us live, hit the like button, allow us some more folks to join us this evening. That would be fabulous. You see the clamp arm starting to open up just beneath the payload fairings there on the Falcon 9 rocket. Just as another bit of housekeeping, if you notice our countdown clock in the upper right-hand corner is slightly ahead of the time you see on SpaceX's feed, the bottom center of your screen. It's because our countdown clock is in real time. SpaceX is on a slight delay, their feed. We will be making the call-outs in real time. As we come into the last few minutes of the count, I want to thank a couple more folks for their support this evening. Bruce Melville with a $2 super chat donation. Really appreciate that, Bruce. Thank you so much. And to Stephen Ross for a very generous $20 super chat with a simple message, 50. Not entirely sure what the 50 is in reference to, but thank you so much, Stephen, for your support. And to Nelson Reyes for joining us once again, as he often does. Good to see you again, sir. Says, thanks again for the great coverage. Thank you, Nelson, for helping support it, make this possible. Now, T-minus
1 LOX load is complete.
T-minus 2 minutes, 38 seconds and counting. Or that call out for stage 1 LOX loading complete. Last fueling call we'll hear is stage 2 LOX load coming up in less than a minute. At which point the Falcon 9 rocket will be fully fueled with
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And then we hear that call out for stage 2 LOX loading complete. Falcon 9 is fully fueled and just in top off. We're now a minute and a half away from scheduled liftoff.
Ground gas closeouts.
And the venting you're seeing is what you just heard that call out for, the ground gas closeouts. One of the final steps before they get ready for liftoff. Now just a little over a minute away. Very briefly, but very sincerely, want to thank David DeJesus for a $2 super chat. Pinfinity for a $10 super chat says space.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Happy to Olivia for a $10 super chat. And Chris Mitchell for a $20 super chat. Saying shout out to Madison and Logan watching in Cocoa Beach. We'll come back to some other donations in just a moment. We are approaching the final 30 seconds now. We did hear the call up that they are go for launch. Liftoff coming up, 20 seconds. 15 seconds. And here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition. And liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket, launching the Starlink 6-34 mission. The Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. After nearly 12 days of Falcon 9 rocket, now lifting off from the U.S. Now coming up on 30 seconds into launch, getting some great tracking views from Chuck Briggs this evening. Also have support from Pete Carsons with Max Q Productions. And this view coming from our own Michael Caine here at the press site. Now, a little over 47 seconds into flight. Listen to the roar of the 9 Merlin engines. Coming up on a minute now, the Merlin engines should be throttling down as the vehicle approaches max Q. That call you just heard, meaning the vehicle traveling faster than the speed of sound. I hear that call out for max Q. These views right now from Michael here at the press site. Now about a minute and a half into flight, less than 1 minute left on the burn of the first stage. These Merlin engines producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Tracking views from Chuck Briggs' camera. Pete Carson's now. That call for MVAC chill down. They're thermally conditioning the second stage Merlin engine for ignition. Now 2 minutes into flight, we're approaching main engine cutoff or MECO. Again, those 9 Merlin engines will shut down, followed by stage separation and ignition of the upper stage, that Merlin vacuum engine. We'll see the payload fairings jettison shortly thereafter. They'll be recovered by Bob tonight. Getting some great views from Pete's camera here. Now 2.5 minutes into flight. Miko. Stage separation. And second stage engine ignition. And there you see stage separation in the delayed SpaceX view. And things moving well. Now a little over 3 minutes into flight. Should see those payload fairings jettison in just a few moments here. We'll see them first on the image on the left-hand side, coming from Pete's camera. There you see those payload fairings falling away right now, glinting against the glow of the Merlin vacuum engine. And there's fairing separation on the SpaceX delay. Those Starlink satellites now exposed to the vacuum of space for the first time. Now T plus 3 minutes, 34 seconds and counting into flight. You can still see those payload fairings on the far left-hand side of your screen just glinting away. Love that. Coming up, the next milestone is that entry burn beginning.
Both vehicles are on a nominal trajectory.
That first stage entry burn coming up at T plus 6 minutes, 14 seconds. The last 18 seconds until T plus 6 minutes, 32 seconds. Seeing some stars whisk by as continue to see tracking views on Pete's camera here. It is a mostly clear night here on the Space Coast, so we're getting some excellent tracking views from Michael, Chuck, and Pete tonight. Now coming up on 5 minutes into flight for the Starlink 6-34 mission. We're now just about a minute away from that first stage entry burn beginning.
Both vehicles continuing to follow a nominal trajectory.
We hear that call out that both the upper stage and first stage of the Falcon 9 following along their intended flight paths. Good news as this mission continues on. And we're getting tracking views now from Michael's camera here at the press site. We're setting up to capture that entry burn beginning in about 4 seconds. Bring you those views if we can see them. And then we see that entry burn beginning. Captured by Pete Carson's camera. We'll see the SpaceX view start on the right-hand side of your screen. There's the end of that entry burn in real time. We'll see if we're still a few seconds more on the SpaceX delay.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
Stage 2 FTSO saved.
There's the end of the entry burn for now, coming up at T plus 8 minutes and
Both
6
stages
seconds.
are on a nominal trajectory.
Is when the landing burn will begin. That's coming up in now less than a minute. And just so you're not having to do some timekeeping math in your head, we do have our
stage 1 transonic.
A call up for stage 1 being transonic, now traveling slower than the speed of sound. Just a few seconds away from the start of the landing burn. Fortunately, it's low enough on the horizon that we won't be able to see it with our tracking cameras. We'll use the SpaceX feed for this portion. There we go. Landing burn now underway. See views from the drone ship there on the right-hand side.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
And touchdown of the Falcon 9 first stage booster, tail number 1081. Successfully going up, successfully coming back down, completing its 3rd flight to date.
MVAC shutdown.
And you hear the call that the Merlin vacuum engine now ceasing its firing, setting up for a coast phase.
Nominal park orbit insertion.
And that parking orbit will continue on until T plus 54 minutes, 9 seconds, at which point the Merlin vacuum engine will fire for 2 seconds, setting up for Starlink deployment coming up in T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 27 seconds.